Unleash the power of knowledge and connect with the heartbeat of the African diaspora. Download our African Diaspora News Channel app now on Google Play and Apple App Store. Stay informed with authentic and diverse perspectives, breaking news, and cultural insights. Immerse yourself in a community that celebrates unity, resilience, and progress. Experience the vibrancy of the diaspora at your fingertips. Don't miss out. Empower your perspective today. Search African Diaspora News Channel and join the conversation.
Hey everyone, Rosemary Halfsome back again to help you take full control of your life by what you choose to put at the end of your fork. So let's get into it. Researchers are looking at a correlation between historical racism, historical prejudice, and preventable chronic illnesses like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, and overweight and obesity. And it's very interesting that we have this correlation that's being examined because Black people know that if you go into a place that's predominantly not like you, then there are some waves and some ripple effects of the energy in that environment. Let's take a look at this clip and look at perhaps one of the reasons why African Americans and Black people in America suffer from preventable chronic illnesses like high blood pressure.
Do you live here?
Yeah.
You do?
Papa.
I don't believe that.
What?
I don't believe that. Come on. Right, come on.
Did someone come here?
That was my wife. Somebody chased her up here. And she had the kids.
Who chased her?
She said somebody in the silver truck.
A gray truck, and he came around the corner, and I was in the street, and so I come up, and I just have my kids, and so I'm like gonna pretend that I'm coming home, and so I pull up, and I start walking to your back gate, and he stops here, and he goes, "Are you looking for someone?" And I said, "Nope." And then he sat here, and I was like, I need to get in.
Well, that's my husband. That's why he lives here. Yeah. He lives here. So he came in and he said, there's a lady screaming. And I'm like,
She got all worried.
Here we have on video a classic Karen fearing a Black man is following her and will do her and her children harm. So she runs screaming at the top of her lungs throughout a neighborhood. Well, it turns out that apparently the so-called perpetrator who she feared was following her and was going to cause her harm lived at the very house where she stopped in front of and was on his way home. But it's very interesting that she immediately thought that he was going to cause her harm to the extent where she's running and screaming through the neighborhood where the man lives and did not believe that he actually lived there, because she did ask him, do you live here? And then literally says to him, I don't believe you. Now, what kind of situation did that create? And what kind of outcome could that have created for this innocent man if police were involved in that? And this is just one of the things that Black people in America are dealing with on almost a daily basis. It may not have been that dramatic, but there are microaggressions that African Americans and Black people in America have to deal with on a daily basis, especially when they're in environments that are not predominantly Black. Researchers have not really paid much attention to the effect of having ongoing stress and anxiety and depression based on the environment that Black people in America walk into in many cases. If you look at even further back than just generations within our memory and look at the descendants of slaves and what they went through, not just on being slaves on plantations and in the New World, but also on what kind of horrors did they endure on the transatlantic voyage, where how many of them, millions of them, died coming over, and millions were thrown into the sea, especially if the ships were in rough weather. we need to look at the effect that that has on the DNA. And that is what epigenetics looks at. It looks at how certain traits are passed down generation to generation. And when you combine that with trauma, then that has a direct relationship with who is going to be suffering from high blood pressure because of that stress and trauma, who's going to be suffering from type 2 diabetes because of coping mechanisms that people use to deal with stress and trauma, or from the poor food quality that people were forced to eat and how that changed and impacted their DNA that's passed down hundreds of years later. We need to look at that and remember that we are experiencing a lot of mental health issues within the Black community because of these aggressions, whether they are seen or unseen. There is that sixth sense that experiences the feelings and the stress that go with that. So what can you do about it? One thing that you can do as a Black person in America is to take control of what you can control when it comes to your health. And one thing that you can do is you can nourish your body with real food. I've said this in so many posts, and I think it's worth repeating each time because the food that you eat can make a difference between how your brain functions in light of all of this stress of our day-to-day lives and how it won't function based on what you feed it. If you're feeding your brain a continuous diet of ultra-processed foods and additives and chemicals, the brain is not functioning the way that it should. Namely, there's something called neuroplasticity. And the beauty of neuroplasticity is that's how it helps the brain function and grow, learning new skills and enabling your brain to function so your cognitive levels stay sharp. That's a wonderful thing. So something like learning a different language or learning a different hobby, reading, doing puzzles, those kind of things help the brain to rewire and to learn new skills. Now, for people that have suffered from strokes, they can also rewire their brain so that the part of the brain that has been affected by the stroke, they can create new connections through the neurotransmitters to create a different way of learning to adapt to their new lives after a stroke. The same thing occurs with mental health and mental health issues. If you are eating real food, it helps the brain to absorb and to get rid of the everyday stresses that Black people experience. Now, how does that work? There's two things. One is you've got to eat right. That's number one. Eat real food. Make sure that if it's an apple, it looks like an apple and not an apple pie. If it's greens, make sure they look green and not all washed out and looking gray and hazardous looking. If it is real food, it should look like the food that it is. That's number one. The number two thing is sleeping. Sleep is really beneficial to help the brain recover from the everyday stresses that we experience day to day. Now, in the case of this man where this Karen was running around and trying to turn him into some sort of a monster, he has to experience life as a Black man living in America every day. And the stresses of that can do so much harm to your health, to your mental health, and to your physical health as well. These four things together can counteract the Karens of our world and also counteract the stresses that come from those Karens falsely reporting people as predators. There's so much more to say about this, but the main thing to remember is that our brains remember so much of what we're aware of and what we're not aware of. The way to safeguard it and to safeguard your mental health is to eat real food, get your sleep, move your body, and manage your stress. So one of the ways that you can do that is by eating real food. Another way is if you cannot always get to the real food, you can always try supplements that are whole food based. One of the supplements that I recommend is this, Glucoblock. It's an amazing supplement. It really helps to metabolize the glucose that is in your body from so much of the food that we eat. It helps you to manage your insulin resistance so that you're not headed down the road to pre-diabetes and then full-fledged type 2 diabetes. If you want to know more about this supplement and how you can protect yourself from the everyday stresses that can turn into chronic preventable illnesses, then check out my YouTube channel, Have Some. It's spelled HAV for Victor, SOM for Mother. And I'll let you know where you can get your supply of GlucoBlock to protect your health. And don't forget to comment, subscribe, and share this channel as we continue the conversation about epigenetics and mental health. And also subscribe to my channel, Have Some. And to your good health, I'm Rosemary Have Some. We'll see you next time. Bye.